So what is Ingres Vectorwise? Ingres Vectorwise is simply a database. It's a very, very, very fast database. A database that is ideally suited to BI and reporting applications. But what's particularly different about Ingres Vectorwise is the way that it is architected. It is architected like nothing else in the market today. And the way it uses its technology and it leverages the modern computer chip. It has been specifically architected to streamline its performance and to give users unparalleled querying capability. No other database on the market leverages the modern computer chip the way that Vectorwise does. Computer chips today are significantly more powerful than they were in the past. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. What it enables you to do is allow your users to interrogate data without any restriction. And for BI and reporting type workloads, Vectorwise will completely change the way we do BI today. Vectorwise is to BI and reporting what the jet engine was to long distance air travel. Before the advent of the jetliner, long distance air travel was measured in days, not hours. And in the same way that the jet engine revolutionised air travel, Vectorwise will change the way we do BI. So how can this speed benefit your organisation? Well, as Mike alluded to today, we're entering an era where users expect instant results. Can you imagine going into Google, typing in your search, and it taking minutes or hours to return the results? It just wouldn't be acceptable. So why is it acceptable for our BI application? In an era where that instant response is required, Vectorwise will deliver that to their users. But it's not just the end users who benefit from that speed. It's the IT departments as well. We've already seen today that we can dramatically reduce the cost and the complexity of projects purely because of the simplicity of Vectorwise's architecture. And that simplicity not only pays dividends at the beginning of your project, but also, as Mike alluded to, through the life of the project. And we'll talk more about that later on. So recently, Ingres participated in some audited benchmarks, performance benchmarks from the Transaction Processing Council. And in this particular benchmark category of 100 gigabytes, you can see here the performance records over the last couple of years where we've had steady incremental increases in the performance benchmark over that 2-year period. Recently, Ingres achieved an outstanding result of 344% faster than the previous record benchmark. Now, this is impressive on a number of levels. Firstly, it achieved that 344% improvement at a much lower cost per query than the other DBMSs had in the past, at 38 cents per query hour compared to the previous record holder of 51 cents per query hour. So not only was it dramatically faster, it did it at a much lower cost. The other important thing to note here is that that benchmark in the blue bar there was achieved using precisely the same hardware configuration as the previous benchmark holder. The improvement you see there from Vectorwise is not because of the hardware, it's because of the way the database software has been architected. In the next performance category of 300 gigabytes, again, the same sort of trend of incremental increases over a 2-year period. Ingres came along in May and again completely shattered the previous benchmark record. And again, it was done at a dramatically lower cost per query. So, as the data volumes got bigger, so too did the performance gap between Vectorwise and the competitors. And finally, in the 1 terabyte performance benchmark, again, we've got Oracle and Sybase and SQL Server benchmarks over a period of 2 years. Once again, all incremental increases, once again, mainly attributed to advancements in hardware. Along comes Vectorwise again with a dramatic increase in performance. Not only does it get 2.5 to 3 times the performance of the previous benchmarks, but it does it at a dramatically lower cost. So when Mike spoke about performance-driven architecture and Bill spoke about getting away from the status quo, here's an example of how we can achieve that. Much greater performance at much lower cost. But it's not just us saying it. It's not just Ingres, it's not just Decision Resources, it's the IT analyst community. My favourite quote from Don Feinberg from Gartner, this is game-changing technology. So again, getting back to the jet airliner analogy, this will change the way we do BI today. Robin Blur from the Blur Group. Ingres Vectorwise is 4 years ahead of anything else in the competition. And even when the competition catches up, we'll still be 4 years ahead. There is nothing else in the market that leverages in-chip computing capability like Ingres Vectorwise. All our competitors are just throwing more horsepower, more of the same at the problem. They're not changing the way their solution is addressed. It was David who spoke about Agile BI and the Big Bang approach. One thing Vectorwise enables you to do is dramatically reduce the level of implementation and effort required to implement your BI solutions. By taking away a lot of the complex builds and a lot of the complex infrastructure, the large servers, the large IT environments, we're able to dramatically reduce the time it takes to deploy your business intelligence solutions. Again, quoting from TWI, average time it takes to build a report or a dashboard, somewhere between 6 and 7 weeks. And if we employ that metric that Mike mentioned of 25%, if you can take a 25% chunk out of every report that you develop, that is a dramatic reduction in cost and risk for every project that you undertake. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's not just at the deployment phase, it's ongoing through the life of your project. Every time your data gets refreshed, you have to go through and rebuild all your indexes, rebuild all your cubes, batch window pressures overnight. These things are incredibly costly ongoing. 25% again was a number, right, Mike? If you can take 25% of your IT maintenance costs out, ongoing maintenance, people costs, very expensive people costs, there's a lot of regained time and benefit there as well. Warren Masters is the CTO of Roheaton Group, and I'll talk a little bit more about this particular case study later on. Vectorwise lets us effortlessly plow through millions and millions of rows of data with seemingly infinite width and depth without the need for new expensive hardware, complicated schemas, explicit indexing, pre-aggregation, or specially handcrafted DBA-tuned SQL. So, you know, he's got the hamburger with a lot there. There's all the little black art that us IT folk employ to get that performance through to our end users to make the BI systems usable. I think one of the important thing is it's not just about the impressive performance, but it's also about the cost at which it delivers that impressive performance. In the benchmark result here, we see that Vectorwise was able to achieve at a 25% cost. So if you think about your cost per query and the number of queries that you run and your organisation runs through the day, it could be 10 queries per user by 100 users, that's 1,000 queries a day. You multiply that out over a period of a year and the impact that has on your IT infrastructure and the hardware costs, etc., etc. It's quite extraordinary what that means in terms of overall project savings. And again, I think it's really worth noting that Vectorwise, the gap between Vectorwise and the competition gets even bigger as your hardware gets what I would call more typical server room hardware. We're not about going out and buying a large Superdome or a large supercomputer to do your BI now. We're talking about using the same sort of server you might use for your mail server. You know, mid-range, everyday server room hardware. Tholis Consulting, 30% better on 30% slower hardware. Forrester Group, this is definitely a breakthrough. Delivers fast results at lower cost. The message is consistent. GSI Commerce, here's an example of customers using Vectorwise today. GSI Commerce, a web analytics company providing their customers with reporting on web traffic, are now able to offer their customers 5 years worth of historical data that they weren't able to do beforehand. So not only are they getting better performance and saving money, they're offering their customers new products and services and driving revenue opportunities because of this technology. Nasa Klaza, for those of you who are unaware, it's the Polish Facebook. Millions and millions of users in Poland are now doing real-time advertising on their version of the social networking site using Ingres Vectorwise. Spoke about Roheaton Group. Again, why I particularly like this example is because they were previously having to build their own database in-memory technology to able to achieve the performance they're getting today out of Vectorwise. So what it's mean is it's changed their business. They've gone from being an IT developer to build this in-memory database to being a hedge fund manager, God forbid, which is their core competency. So on that note, I'd like to particularly thank Bill and the team at Decision Resources for putting on this morning and inviting us along to present. I'm particularly excited about the opportunity to work with Decision Resources. They're an incredibly professional and high calibre organisation with a great pedigree and experience in BI and data warehousing. I particularly like the approach around the methodology that they employ and the strategy. I think it's really, really important. Like Mike and the boys, I've been doing BI since the early 90s, and you know, some of these problems that I faced during my career would have been really solved straight up with a terrific strategy, and I think the combination of the strategy, the experience and the Vectorwise product will go a long way to solving a lot of customer issues in your organisations. So thank you very much. I'll hand back to Bill to take you through the rest of the morning.